Hey everybody, I'm not really sure if anybody's here yet. People probably aren't. I was just plugging this stream in the YouTube Saints stream. So yeah, but I'm gonna have my friend Ryan come on because we are going to be talking about something, but I said that I was going to start immediately, so I figured I might as well be starting immediately by myself, just chatting with you guys. So let me think. What should I mention? Well, so I had a lovely little day today. I made a video last night that I thought was pretty good. I mean, I kind of thought it was all right. I got into rant mode while I was writing it. It's called How Antifa Really Thinks. And it was basically me saying, like, Antifa isn't, well, first of all, yes, I know the joke that you're going to say, Antifa doesn't really think. That could be definitely said to be true. But what I was saying is that Antifa doesn't think like critical thinkers think. They think like hipsters think. And that was what the video is all about. And then I decided that I didn't really need to worry about making a video today, which was cool because somebody that I know wanted to go canoeing. And so I went canoeing, and then we went out for dinner, and I splurged, and I got a piece of chocolate cheesecake because I haven't been I haven't been drinking, so I've been able to lose weight really easily, and I had this chocolate cheesecake, and then I was all wired, so I actually had some whiskey, so I've been drinking my whiskey, and that has been my day. But then I was looking today at my friend Ryan, who's here now. Sam is taught.
Hi, friends. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
He posted something on Facebook, because we're actually friends on the Facebook, and it was very, very funny. It was an article that I thought was satire, but he told me is not actually satire, which I thought was really, really weird. And so I'm gonna after I open up the chat so I can see you motherfuckers. Oh wait, you know what I need to do? I need to monetize this because I never do that. Hold on one second. I always forget to monetize. Okay, save changes.
Never forget to monetize, man.
Yeah, well, with the streams, I always monetize my videos. I'm pretty good about that. Now, of course, they demonetize them, but they actually remonetize my videos when I ask them to. They just demonetize them, and then I have to tell them, hey,
Well, you
manually.
could be a Nazi, so they don't want to support that, eh?
Yeah, I think that they put me on the, like, I think that and I think I've been on this list for a long time. Like, I think that Google has, my real identity and knows every social media account that I fucking do. And they're like, this guy is somebody who is, I'm primary target number one. I'm in the category of primary target number one that needs to get shut down by way of social media censorship, because I'm not easily categorized as somebody that's, right, because I'm not particularly right-wing or conservative. I'm certainly not bigoted. I don't have anything hateful, but I am not the establishment regressive corporate Democrats. So people need to not hear me. So they have been constantly unsubscribing, but they're also not going to completely demonetize me because that would make no sense. And they hate that. That's the worst thing to them. So now I just need to look at my chat because I need to see everybody and say hi to the chat, because otherwise I will feel weird. And then we should look at the article, because you said that you have to go to bed pretty soon anyway.
Well, there's no big hurry, but
okay.
yeah, it showed up in a few places. Age of Shitlords is sort of the one I'm looking at, and it's a notice that the Calgary Police Service originally did And it reads like this: signs of a child being part of a hate group.
Wait, hold on one second. Real quick, I got $2 from Pokemon Fetishist, and he says, I like you more than my Mahu friend Wombat. I don't really know what that means, but thank you very much for the $2. I will take it. And so, yeah, I'm going to bring up this article that I'm going to screen share it because people need to actually fucking see this, because this is, I really thought it had to be a satire. Like, I was like, to be perfectly honest, I kind of like opened it up. I took a look at it for about 10 seconds and I was like, yeah, satire. Well, it's funny. I'll share it. And then you commented, and I was like, wait, this is satire though, right? And you're like, no, it's not. And then I'm like, oh, okay. We need to talk about this. And by the way, it's good to talk to you again.
Yeah, good to talk to you again. This summer's been crazy on my end.
Oh yeah. I've been, it's been a crazy summer on a lot of people's end, I think, to be perfectly honest. It's been a crazy summer. I want people to make compilation videos called #SummerOfBlood and put, political violence into compilation forms so that, especially students going back to school can easily share with each other what's actually happened, because I don't think enough people have really seen. So,
well, the funny thing about this article is when it gets into the list of signs that your kid could be into a neo-Nazi gang, it reads exactly like something that a televangelist in the late 80s would put out as a warning that your children is into devil cults. Something very much like that. And that's what really strikes me about this, is it's really, really gone full circle. The same public fears keep coming up in moral panics over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that's what I find remarkable about this. It is such a cyclical thing.
Well, and could you tell the audience, like, your experience with being a teenager?
Well, I was 14, 15 years old, and this was back in 1989. Yeah, I mean, I don't look the part now. I got my, still got my heavy metal t-shirt on, my Nazi shaved head. I had a little bit more hair back then, I guess, but in any event, was near at that time, early 89, that Geraldo Rivera broadcast his special, Exposing Satan's Underground. And he had mentioned, during that special, some of the bands that I had listened to were mentioned. I was into Slayer and, Metallica and Iron Maiden and that sort of stuff. And it was newer and more controversial then than it is now. Mm-hmm. Well, a number of the people I went to school with kind of caught on to that. And next thing you know, I was being accused left, right, and center of, this guy's really into satanic cult activity because he listens to this weird, terrible music, and oh my God, we can't hang out with him. And it was taken pretty damn seriously. I remember thinking even then, it's a damn good thing this isn't the 16th century, or they'd be burning me at the stake right about now. Eventually I kind of put it to work in my favor. Like, if some of the kids that I went to school with were giving me a real bad time, it's like, I would say, well, you better leave me alone, or I'll summon a demon to possess you, like in The Exorcist or something like that. And believe it or not, that worked as often as not.
That's awesome.
But it's really astounding to me just how easy people get swept up by these kinds of stupid things. And then, of course, as time went on, it kind of subsided, and the people moved on to a new one. As far as music was concerned, well, it moved on from heavy metal and into gangster rap, and that caused everyone to get involved in gangland violence. And then weird, video games came up, and so on and so on.
Well, what's weird is that, so like maybe this is untrue, and I just don't remember it very well, but the heavy metal thing. Oh, you're echoing a bit on your end. Okay, so the heavy metal thing, it wasn't so much that people were like, I don't think, this is my impression, that it's not like people were actually, I listen to heavy metal and I'm a Satanist. It was more like maybe a few of the bands might have used a teeny bit of like Satanist imagery in some of their art just because they thought it was kind of cool, and they didn't realize how much the media would hype that up and make it into this big deal. But I think for the most part, people who were into heavy metal didn't actually think that they were Satanists or anything. Is that true?
No. I mean, if you really look at it, Satan in mythology is an archetypal figure, and you look at somebody like, say, Anton LaVey, founder of the actual Church of Satan. He'll come out and say this: we don't worship the bad guy of the Christian religion. We identify with an archetype that is a rebellion against moral hypocrisy and authority that that's again very rooted in self-serving, hypocritical double standards. So they kind of identified with this, and I think popular culture was, kind of went in the same way. The devil was seen as kind of a metaphor for the darker side of human nature.
Mm-hmm.
Which kind of beginning in the 70s, not just with the metal, and the emergence of Black Sabbath and groups like that, but it became increasingly prevalent in the pop culture of that time. That's when you had films like The Exorcist, Rosemary's Baby, and that sort of thing. And I think it stemmed from a growing disillusion of the romanticism of the hippies and how they were all about peace and love and get back to the land. Really, because human nature isn't always all about peace and love. There's a dark side to it.
Yeah, I didn't know how fucked up.
And so that became a part of it. Was an archetypal expression of this. But now the fundamentalists, who are kind of part of the same tendency in a lot of other ways, kind of picked up on that, but they interpreted it like fundamentalists interpret things, literally and without nuance.
Yeah. I think that what a lot of people forget about is people think of like the hippie movement as if it was this like, oh yeah, it was this great thing, and that's what all our parents did in the 60s and blah blah blah. And it's like, what people forget and is that the hippie movement, that was really only like the summer of '69, and then it kept going. Like, people say that most of the 60s happened in the 70s, and it was,
that's one way of thinking of it.
yeah. And it's this, it was the same thing with the rave scene in the 90s, which I remember. Like, raves are thought of as this 90s thing, but they went on, like they really became popular in the early 2000s, and to a certain degree, but that's when everything got all fucked up and everybody had really bad drug problems, and like it kept going on and on and on. And a lot of the people who were like hippies ended up in these weird, I think the movie Easy Rider is a really good example of like, because it's super dark. If you actually watch that fucking movie, it's like not fucking what you would think. If you hear it's a hippie movie, you think it's going to be one thing, and then you watch it and you're like, whoa, that's fucked up. So yeah, real quick, I've gotten super chats and I cannot neglect them. So I got $2 from the next 6 minutes. Says, was this article written by Jeff Foxworthy? It does probably seem like that, but unfortunately I don't believe so. And then I got $5 from Pokemon Fetishist. Angel of Death, monarch to the kingdom of the dead, sadistic, surgeon of demise, sadist of the noblest blood. Thank you.
Prince.
Yeah.
Tom Araya sang it far better than you just did, man.
Oh, it's actually a song?
It's actually a song. It's
okay.
Opening song in their best album to this day, Rain and Blood.
Okay.
Breaking blood from a lacerated sky, bleeding its horror. Oh yeah, good times, man. Never get tired of it.
Pokemon Fetishist, the guy who gave me that super chat. He's a cool dude. He's been on my stream a few times. You'd probably enjoy him. And then he gave me, I think, another one down here. And he says, I was actually cornered by 3 local peers along with my brother. We were accused of worshiping Satan with a dead cat. Interesting. Okay, so those are all the super chats for now. Do you want to go over the article?
If you wish.
Okay. So does your child listen to loud, heavy rock music? He might be a neo-Nazi. And then these are the people that are supposed to be neo-Nazis, which, by the way, is... Oh, wait, there is some guy with a Confederate flag, so I guess... Oh, no, and that one dude has a swastika and a on his...
And, here's the thing. You might find the odd guy that does listen to metal and is, maybe a neo-Nazi or into something kind of like that, but they're certainly not representative of the fan base.
Yeah. Yeah, the whole guilt by association thing can be used in anyone's fucking direction, and it's a shame because that can be used to create false equivalencies. Like the false equivalence thing that we have going on right now is kind of like everybody who advocates for freedom of speech is supposed to be on one side and fit into one bracket, and then everybody who advocates against freedom of speech is supposed to go onto one side and into one bracket. Except for that's annoying because whoever the fuck is advocating against freedom of speech is a lot easier to put into a bracket. Like it's easier to figure out whoever wants to get rid of freedom of speech. If somebody wants to get rid of freedom of speech, chances are they have a little bit more specific of a motivation than somebody who's advocating for freedom of speech.
There's usually a religious or an ideological, for all the difference that exists between the two, really, motive to censor something that they find equivalent. And that's very universal. Christian fundamentalist, Muslim fundamentalist, communist, a Nazi, intersectional feminist, they all advocate for censorship, but they don't advocate for censorship as censorship. They advocate for the suppression of speech that they consider blasphemous to something they hold sacred.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas to the more libertarian-minded people who are also tend to be rational, and their concept of the sacred is, if they have it at all, it's much, much less significant to them, would be more of the kind to say, no, if you find it offensive, just shut it off or whatever.
Yeah, or say why you disagree with it clearly, and maybe they will change their mind. It's funny because I was just today I was in a one of the things that annoys me the most about SJWs, and I encountered this just today. This woman, a friend of mine who I'm friends with on Facebook, who I don't actually think I've ever met him in real life. He posted something today, and he's somebody who he's never been an SJW, but he knows he lives in, I think, Brooklyn, in like Bushwick, Brooklyn, which is like hipster megaville, and I would say probably similar to me, a good 85% of the people he knows are all SJWs, but I have never gotten the impression that he's an SJW. He never posts anything that's like that, He's more of just like he's just a weirdo that's into art and everything, but he seems cool and he seems smart. And today he posted something about like mass hysteria and how he's really fucking, I think he just posted simply in one line, like, do you ever stop to think if you personally have been affected by mass hysteria? Something very simple like that. And of course he got all of these, I think I posted a link to an article that somebody had sent me that had mass hysteria in the title that I thought was funny. But then I had to read through the comments because I knew that he's somebody that has SJW friends, and the comments, a good half of them were from SJWs saying like, "Oh, look at all of these white guys eager to be off the hook because they are so happy to complain about identity politics so they get to go back to being privileged and not having to think about how easy they have it," and shit like that. And and one girl in particular, and the funny thing, she had that feminist face. Like, I was scrolling through and I just looked at her pictures and the way she had her hair. Her hair, it wasn't like it's not like it was like pink or fucking pastel blue or anything, but I could just tell by her face, the way she did her makeup, that she was a fucking feminist cunt. Like I could just fucking tell. And I don't use the word cunt most of the time, but like she just had that cunt face. And I was like, oh, I got to read this comment. This is going to be good. And of course it was. I don't remember what it was. And my friend had ended up deleting his whole post because of the shitstorm that. So I can't look at it anymore. But it was something to the effect of, like every something super annoying. And then what I've noticed about SJWs is that like anybody delusional, like anybody who follows a certain ideology that's flawed, but they're hanging on to it and they want to hang on to it for whatever reason. And anybody does this, like religious people do this, Christian people do this when they start saying, oh, I know that there's problematic Christian people, but they're not the real Christians. Yeah. So this girl,
no true Scotsman, eh?
Yeah, there's that kind of a mentality, and I've noticed that SJWs have been starting to become self-aware enough to know that they should criticize. And they've been like this for a while. They've so she was simultaneously like being self-critical about the SJW mentality, but still justifying it. So she was like,
yeah, we get a lot of these in the alt-left Facebook groups too, all kinds of them.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Like there are people who are like, yeah, I'm drawn to this because I'm really, really sick of call-out culture. But man, I mean, how else do we fight the patriarchy?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like
there's somebody who didn't really stop and think about how cultures like this, and this is by no means the first thing like it. This is what Puritan America in the 1600s was like.
Yeah.
Obsession with thought crime and impurity and moral panic. What these kinds of SJWs you're talking about are the sorts of people who didn't think that the downside of it would happen to them.
Yeah.
It was always going to be somebody more ignorant than themselves that was going to get called out. It wasn't going to be them. Oh, no.
Yeah, let me finish with this girl though, because she was just particularly funny. So I looked at her comment and it was just full of like, this is girl with the most stereotypical feminist cunt face, like you could just tell. And then her comment was like full of sort of like self-contradictory messages, like what are you actually trying to say? And so then I looked at her fucking Facebook. I had to click and like actually look at her profile, and her bio says it was like founder of the World of Warcraft Trust and Safety Council or something.
What?
Yeah, like she's the like Gamergate specialist for the game World of Warcraft. Like she's like the Anita Sarkeesian that specifically handles World of Warcraft or some shit. And I was like, oh my god, that's just too good. And so I got into it with her a little bit. And but then my friend deleted the comment. And yeah, I just thought it was hilarious though, because she was like raging about this is the thing that I thought was particularly annoying about what she was saying. She totally said, I hate call out culture, but, and then went on to basically justify call out culture. And so I had to say to her, I was like, well, it's really interesting that you say you hate call out culture. Your literal job is call out culture. You're I mean, unless that's not your day job, but it's kind of weird that that's your Facebook bio, is that you're this fucking like censor of the game World of Warcraft, which I don't play, but it's the most popular massive multiplayer online game as far as I know. And so that would be a job that like could be a full-time job for someone, and obviously it would be some feminist cunt. And it's so funny that person is aware that she's supposed to say, oh, I don't like call out culture. And it would be like being a little kid at elementary school and having some church lady come and be like, I'm cool. I like to have fun just like all of you kids. But and then she, lays out a whole bunch of rules. So,
well, yeah, like Tipper Gore was like that back in the days when the Parents Music Resource Center was a thing. Mm-hmm. And that they grew up on the Beach Boys and the Beatles and that sort of thing. And it's like, oh yes, of course we like, wholesome and pure rock and roll. Even though the same things were said about that music back then.
Sorry, I'm just muting myself for a second. I will be back in. I'm listening. It'll just take me a few. Okay. Talk. Say something interesting. We have viewers.
So it's funny to see these kinds of things. It's very, history goes in cycles. What was I going to say here? Miss you talking my ear off there, Prince. You muted yourself just as I ran out of things to say. Well, okay then. Does your child listen to loud, heavy music? He might be a neo-Nazi.
Okay, I'm back now. Do you want me to read it?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay. He might be a neo-Nazi. And here are some people that do appear to have affiliations with neo-Nazi type groups. Though the person wrapped in the flag kind of looks like he's part Mexican, which I suspect a lot of neo-Nazis are part Mexican and they're overcompensating, but I will go on. According to Calgary Police, if you listen to heavy rock music, you or your child could become a neo-Nazi. You or your child. Sorry. I didn't realize that you could infect others with your listening habits. But yeah. Following the devastating events in Charlottesville, geez, they really are happy Charlottesville happened. Like they are gonna milk that for all it was fucking worth. They were just waiting for that to happen.
Well, again, it's like that one kid back in the 80s that really did commit suicide because of a Judas Priest song or their Dungeons and Dragons character died. One kid that continually gets dragged up to legitimize the moral panic.
Or like the one kid that legitimately swallowed 10 packs of Pop Rocks and then chugged a fucking soda and actually died or something.
Yeah, or had his tongue stuck to a metal pole when it was 40 below out or something like that. You can always find the one example that's real.
Mm-hmm.
But the question is how typical is that of the norm, is of how the whole culture is? It almost never is. But it's enough that the media plays it in such a way as to stir up a moral panic.
I feel like there was some other things that happened like that in the 90s Like,
well, there were all kinds of them in the 90s. This was when, what was that school shooting?
Columbine.
Yeah, that was when Columbine, and there was a game, there was a music connection to that. I think Marilyn Manson was mentioned.
Yeah, because they called them the Trench Coat Mafia.
Yeah,
it's so funny though.
And video games were brought up then too. And
because they wondered how, because the Columbine kids got it done. They were actually really good. They held the whole school hostage for like a long time, and they shot a lot of kids. Like I for a school for a mass shooting, that was kind of like the original mass shooting in my life that set the trends. And they killed a lot of different kids and held them hostage for a long time. They were very organized about how they did it, and so everybody was like, how did they fucking learn these skills? And so people were like, well, probably through playing Doom is what they said.
Yeah, that first person shooters, and they learned to shoot accurately while playing these games.
Yeah, and how to like hide behind corners and all these things, which is true. I mean, to be in all fairness, if you are going to go on a mass shooting spree, you would want to play a bunch of video games first if you're going to do it right. That is true. But I mean, that same fucking thing goes for a million types of things. You can learn how to play it in a simulation. Same thing goes for if you want to fly an airplane. Same goes for that. So, you know.
Yeah.
So, according to Calgary Police, blah, 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 following the devastating events in Charlottesville, the music industry and tech companies have joined forces to work against hate.
Yeah.
Always a good sign.
Yeah,
people are working against hate. Companies like Spotify have taken down white supremacist and neo-Nazi content from their platforms. Can we get a list of what exactly that was? I want a Streisand effect on this motherfucking bitch. Just because I have no idea what those would be. Like, what would Spotify be taking down? Like,
yeah, they're quite vague about this, right? Like,
yeah. Well, and like I feel like there were like people keep thinking that the Dropkick Murphys are a white supremacist band for some fucking reason, and I don't know why it is, because the Dropkick Murphys are not a white supremacist band. They fucking hate that, and there was a time, probably about like 6 or 7 years ago, where some dudes started like they had a bunch of fans on stage at one of their shows, and some dude started doing the Nazi salute, and I think it was one of the guitar players like threw down his guitar, ran across the stage, and started like beating the shit out of the dude because he was like, no, you can't do that. We're not, you know, like I totally understand the impulse if I was in a band that had been falsely accused of such a thing. Hello? You there?
Absolutely. You know, the media picks up a story like that and runs with it. You know, have you ever heard of this? A great book was written by this a long time ago, Folk Devils and Moral Panics, a study of UK media coverage of and reaction to rival youth groups, published in 1972. I think it was about you know, the mods and the rockers and the moped gangs and these kinds of things. And the writer, a sociologist by the name of Stanley Cohen, really lays out how, you know, precisely how the moral panic operates. And you see these same patterns time and time and time again, and the same sorts of targets appear repeatedly. You know, rock music, metal, and rap is one, video games is one. You know, the specific evil they cause might vary in accordance to what the flavor of the time is. But it inevitably works the same way. And he uses this term, he says, something to the effect that moral panics are often instigated by moral entrepreneurs, people with a desire to either adopt or discontinue a particular social norm. The moral entrepreneurs work hand in glove with mass media and law enforcement to create a deviancy amplification spiral. That takes place when mass media becomes fixated and sensationalistic in its coverage of the behaviors that the moral entrepreneurs are seeking to change. Right now, it seems to be racism, Nazism, white supremacy, etc., etc. But what's scary about this is that implicit in this is a kind of like a desire to crack down, erosion of civil liberties, extend power to the police or power to the state or power to big corporations to censor and persecute people who are already on the margins of society to begin with. And that's what's always kind of scary about it.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that, I'm worried about is the Streisand Effect part of it, because, like, I don't remember the Satanic Panic of the 80s. The only thing, I've probably told you this before, the only thing I remember about the Satanic Panic is that I had this cousin who I've only met, like, once. He's not even my blood cousin. He's my my aunt's son from my aunt's husband's previous marriage. So he's just sort of like one of those random relatives, And when I was about, I don't know, I must have been 7 or 8 when this was happening. Yeah, I must have been 7 because I was born in 82. I went to go visit my aunt in Colorado at the time that he was visiting, and he was probably like 10 or 11. So I'm 7 and he's 10 or 11, and he did that kind of crappy thing where he was trying to scare me as much as he could, because that's what relatives do to their littler, And one of the things he tried to scare me about was, like, we went to the mall and there was a store that had heavy metal T-shirts, and there was like Guns N' Roses and shit like that. And he was like, "Oh, did you know that Guns N' Roses worships Satan?" And I'm like, "What's Satan?" Or like, and I'm like, "Yeah, they worship Satan, and they sacrifice cats." And I was like, "Nah." That's all I fucking remember. But it scared me. Like, I remember being scared.
Oh, that's what kids that went to junior high school with thought I did.
Yeah.
After a while, I stopped arguing with them, and even got to the point, I'll sacrifice one and send a demon after you if you don't, if you don't shut up and get out of my way here. Believe it or not, it worked.
Yeah, some fucking like Game of Thrones shit. So I got some.
Hey, give me the lunch money, kid, or I'm gonna send a demon after you.
So I got a few super chats. Tommy Jenkins says Satan did like 3 bad things in the Bible, and 2 of them were at the behest of God himself, Job and Jesus, and finally able to super chat again. Also finally able to super chat again. Well, you don't have to stop super chatting, but you can certainly send me your money on PayPal instead. Oh, and by the way, anybody who's in the audience, if this idea speaks to you, I've started. I don't know exactly how I'm going to do this, but if you guys have seen, I do my little skit videos occasionally. I probably have about 5 of them. I've been considering taking requests for money. You send me, say, $20 minimum. And then you give me a character idea. It could be you. It could be some fantasy person. And I will write that character into a script. And I will do it eventually. And so it will be a good way to donate to me and to interact with the audience. Because ultimately, I'm not very good at planning my my hangouts with my audience regularly, because I'm a moody motherfucker and I'm just not always in the mood. So let me see. What else do I got? I got Pokemon Fetishist. I am bored. Link me. I actually did, dude. So
I'm back now.
Oh, he's here. Okay, here he is. And I got, I think some more from him. He also said, melt the elderly into one giant elderly. That's pretty funny.
That will solve the healthcare problems, man. Just like one problem to deal with instead of tons, right?
And all the girls of color go. Oh, and all the girls of color go do.
Oh, in the chat, I the not super chat because there was a bunch of shit I didn't want to pay $10 to say. No, they were talking about vegan feminists, and I was talking about a vegan feminist dragged me to a conference. Animal rights are human rights, a conference on the intersectionalities of oppressions. And I was just pointing out that it was at the University of Guelph here in Ontario. And I was saying that it's the same university that more recently their student union declared that Lou Reed's song "Walk on the Wild Side" was transphobic because it talks about cross-dressing.
Oh.
So my reference was I was surprised they didn't actually say it was racist as well, because it says all the colored girls go do. They totally
yeah. Well,
that's why I spelled it girls of color.
Because SJWs say colored all the time, basically so much, which is I like the fact that I'm gonna maybe steal that joke. I'm gonna use it.
Go for it.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So and then there's even more. You say, dude, I have Tipper's book beside me right now as fuck. Cool. And you also said, I think one more. I am an expert on this subject. Let me on. You're on.
Yeah, I was bored and desperate. Just the way you like your lovers.
Well, no, I'm actually am very big on consent. Call me crazy, but I really like it when somebody totally wants to have sex with me. So
that sounds really fucking crazy. You get the misogyny thing all wrong. I thought this was a rape culture. What the fuck planet am I on here?
Okay, so let's go back to this article.
Yes, please. Sorry.
So, following the devastating events in Charlottesville, which is clearly the only thing that happened this summer, the music industry and tech companies have joined forces to work against hate. Companies like Spotify have taken down white supremacist and neo-Nazi content from their platforms. They took down the song Chatelet, is what they're saying. In addition, government officials have worked to raise awareness about the dangers of hate groups. Yet, one organization has taken things just a bit too far. See, I'm sorry, you cannot say things like that without me thinking that it's a fucking satire article.
Yeah, it sounds like Boston Antifa on YouTube.
Yeah. Titled, Signs of a Child Being Part of a Hate Group, the Calgary Police Service issued a list of signs that worried parents should look for in their children. Reading through the list, you'll find common warning signs like violent behavior and stereotyping certain ethnic or religious groups. That's just funny to me. Ouch.
Part of me hopes there is one black parent out there that when their kid is fucking crackers, they recognize it for what it is, like this article suggests, but we all know it's one-sided.
That's Mom,
POC versus everyone else.
Mom,
white people.
Yeah, exactly like what some evangelical back in 1986 would put out, is your kid into satanic cult activity? It reads exactly like it.
Yeah, it's a satanic panic all over again.
Yes, exactly. And it's going after all the same targets.
Yeah, I'm sure you guys heard about the West Memphis 3. There's 3 HBO documentaries about that whole case. That's pretty good. But I saw an article recently in the news where it was a husband and wife. Actually, they were in jail for close to 20 years or maybe over. They were just released after it was found out that they weren't part of a satanic ritual abuse cult after all.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, it was a literal witch hunt. It really was. It wasn't pleasant.
Yeah. Dr. Jordan B. Peterson was talking about, maybe you know about this, Ryan. There was some group of people in some fucking place. I don't know where these people were. And I want to find this story because I want to actually read about these fuckers. They had heard about the satanic preschool abuse ring where they were abducting children and taking them to underground layers. And they started trying to dig and find the underground layers.
That's funnier than Comet Ping Pong, man. The Pizzagate shit. That's funnier than that, man.
But I think they say reading through the list, you'll find common warning signs like violent behavior and stereotyping certain ethnic or religious groups. Like, Mom, do you notice that black people like yams a lot? Or is that just me?
Hey, Mom, do you honestly believe the black Ethiopians are a lost tribe of Israel and have the Ark of the Covenant? You fucking bigot!
The police force...
Sorry, that was ridiculous, but that's the point.
The police force also urged parents to remain vigilant for behavior such as children wearing or displaying Nazi propaganda. Something suggests to me that most people already thought that was weird. Hey, just so you guys know, it's not coming back in style. Don't act like it's cool. But did you know that playing loud, heavy rock music also counts as a warning sign? Maybe it's time to put away your favorite AC/DC and Black Sabbath albums.
I like that. Wait, real quick. This part that says, in addition, if your child suddenly changes his or her appearance, that means that fucking trans people and gender fluid are neo-Nazis too.
Yeah. Okay.
Somebody needs to tell Antifa that they now have an unlikely ally in the religious right.
Yeah, trans...
I'm sure they'll be thrilled, eh?
Yeah.
The close add to a bona fide right-wing totalitarian movement in the Western world in the past half century. And look at the overlap.
Yeah, well, it just makes me think of horseshoe theory every time.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Combined with, it's okay when we do it.
So,
Prince, are you charging your battery? Because you're at 11%.
I'll be fine. Thanks.
Okay.
So in the leaflet, you'll find some common child and teenage behaviors that Canadian officials list as early warning signs. This includes sudden lack of interest in school and adopting new groups of friends. Uh-oh, the bad kids are here.
Oh, man, it reminds me of back in the 90s, there's a Time magazine thing. I think it might have been a headline or maybe a major article. Like how to spot a troubled child or something. And it listed things like not losing interest in school, and it also said tendency to portray the world as bleak. So kids that are realists, they're troubled. They need to be fucking given Ritalin or some shit.
I always found the losing interest in school to be, it's okay, I was never interested in school. I was one of those fucked up kids that was simultaneously in the gifted program. I think because I could,
and they didn't know where else to put you.
Well, I think it was more. I think it was more because I hated school but could magically pass all of the tests at the same time, and so it was I was uninterested, but that didn't really matter.
They probably recognized that you didn't give a shit, but you're still able to pump out better shit than the rest of your classmates.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to humble brag or anything, but that happened to me. I got in this special program in elementary school, and then I got the flu for a week. I come back and they kicked me out. That was total ableist bullshit.
So, as a child and a teenager, I hardly cared about school. I also made new friends pretty easily thanks to my sarcastic personality. The last time I checked, however, I didn't belong to a neo-Nazi group. In addition, having Latin roots wouldn't have allowed me to easily form part of a group that chants Hail Hitler anyway. Okay, wait. So I just didn't read this before, but this person is mocking the police force.
Well, yeah, ACAB, my brother.
Okay, so this person who's writing this is actually cool. So that's
Robert Riggs. They're talking to this fellow Robert Riggs, commenting on the police force's initial thing here, and he's kind of making fun of it. Eh?
Yeah.
I detected the lighthearted nature earlier when he said like that, but this fucking nut bar went too far or whatever he said.
Yeah, I just that went over.
You can get lost in it, and then Poe's law kind of becomes like a mental
absolutely
something.
When the reality is wear a swastika to an average heavy metal concert and see how far you get.
Yeah, probably not more than a few feet away from your car.
Well, is this a Hindu metal concert or a Buddhist metal concert?
Yeah, I think what a lot of people underestimate about the metal scene, you're not necessarily going to find a lot of black guys there, but about like well over 40% of the crowd will be Latino, depending on where you are.
Yeah, I haven't noticed that.
You guys both live in Canada.
Oh, we do? Where are you from, dude?
I'm from Calgary. I'm from where this whole thing's going down here.
Oh, okay. That's why your Prince is expert. I'm in Toronto, and I just witnessed the crazy from afar, but I'm sure you witnessed tons of crazy from my fucking area.
No, but if you're in the United States, especially in like California or something, there is fucking like Latino dudes are really into metal. They're also really into the Smiths, and they're into all sorts of fucking rock music. Like, and it's a fucking thing.
Yeah,
like
big followings in South America too. Groups like Iron Maiden are huge there. Don't know if they still are, but they used to be.
Yeah, no, it's not an and these, they're not just like random dudes that happen to like sort of be Latino. Like we're talking like full cholo gangster dudes that are they don't listen to fucking hip hop. They listen to heavy metal, and they'll fucking throw down. They will whoop your ass if they have a problem with you. Like
I'm Juan Martinez, man. You fucking with my cousin, SA. I'm gonna come down on you like Rammstein.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a demographic thing for sure. Here, I've been going to metal concerts for years and years. My mom, I said it in the chat earlier, but my mom realized it would be cheaper to take my brother and I to like Slayer shows and stuff like that because we wanted to come anyway, than to pay for a babysitter. So it's mostly fucking white people. But when there is a fucking black metalhead. Maybe it was my youthful eyes back then and coming from a town that had no black people, but I always thought they were the coolest fucking metalheads in the room.
I never knew there were some, but not many. But we were always the ones that really didn't get along with the Nazis. And the Nazis where I'm from, the skinhead gangs and that, hardly ever went after the minorities. They always fought against groups like Sharps, as they were called, Skinheads Against Racial Prejudice, and other sort of proto-Antifa type groups, which, being both a metalhead, when I was younger, both a metalhead and a leftist, I always kind of found myself in those kinds of groups.
It's like the anti-skins and like the punk movement.
Yeah, it was.
Scene.
I got into going to shows right when that whole battle was dying out in my area. Like I was in Seattle and I started going to punk rock shows when I was like 13, 14.
When you say battle, sorry, real quick, do you mean the battle in Seattle?
Well, I was there for that too, but that was later.
Okay.
That happened in 1999, and I was about 17 then. But when I was about 13, 14, I went to some, random punk rock and ska shows and shit, just because that was what was going on in 1995, 96. That's what you did. And some of the people that I knew from those things, like, this girl that went to my school who was into that, and then we both stopped being into that, but we remained friends. She knew some older people that, like, there was a number of them who were like hardcore punk rocker type people that, you know, they like lived like in punk houses, and some of them were sharps. Because I remember, like, I met them a few times, and I was like, "Are these people skinheads?" And she's like, "Oh, well, no, they're not skinheads. They're sharps." And I'm like, "Well, what's that?" And she's like, "It's skinheads against racial prejudice. They look like skinheads, but they hate skinheads."
Yeah.
And I'm like,
They're
"Okay." And she's like,
Anti-racist who love the red laces.
yeah. And there was the whole thing with the laces that you have. Sharps wear red laces on their combat boots, and then the real skinheads, like racist skinheads, wear white laces on their combat boots. And then there was this girl. So my friend was named I should make up a name for her.
Christine.
I'll call her Christine. Her name was we called her Little Christina is what we'll call her, because she was little, and for some reason we called her Little Christina. And then there was a girl at our school that we called Big Christina because she was taller, and Big Christina was like actually potentially a racist skinhead. But nobody really knew her because she was like brooding and quiet. And
no one took the time to appreciate her personality because she was a large woman. Had fat phobia.
Oh no, she wasn't fat. She was tall.
I'm just kidding. But yeah, okay, go on. Sorry.
No, it was just this weird thing where it was like, apparently there was all this backstory about these people that, you know, like there was the sharps and then there was the skinheads, and they hated each other, and they would sometimes get in fights, and some of them went to our school, but I was a fucking freshman anyway. And then my friend Little Christina was a fucking sophomore, and she was younger than all of them. They were all seniors, and so I never really actually knew exactly what happened. And then within a year I was a raver, so it didn't really matter. Like,
that it reminded me that I knew a guy named Aaron, like Aaron, and at the same time I knew a girl named Erin, Erin. So instead of just like to differentiate when we're all in the same room, I just started calling Aaron the guy Aaron. But instead of just leaving it there, which would have been fine, I started calling her Erin. It worked out.
Yeah, that works. So
give them both the same treatment so they don't feel upset.
Okay. I'm all caught up on super chats. Let's move on with this article. So the Calgary Police also said that secretive behavior may show that your child, secretive behavior in quotes, may show that your child could belong to a hate group. So if your child hides the fact that they forget to do their homework, they belong to a hate group. If a married adult like myself hides that they forgot to purchase the groceries, they're most likely a neo-Nazi. In addition, if your child suddenly changes his or her appearance, name calls someone, or behaves disobediently, watch out. They most likely belong to a hate group.
Is name calling someone misgendering them or using their dead name? I imagine that fits under that umbrella.
Yeah. I now wonder if both of my daughters fall into this category. Also, do you or your child listen to Metallica, Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, or Black Sabbath? Playing heavy rock music with violent lyrics is listed as one of the clearest signs of belonging to a hate group. They should really update what counts as heavy
hate music. Like, think about the fact that it seems like this is to distract you from the misogyny of rap music, which is in some cases actually legitimate, or the homophobia in the black community. Like DMX, he's like, I don't fuck with niggas that think they broads. Only one way to be. That's the dog, and he's totally homophobic, and people love him for it. I mean,
DMX is a fucking actor, though. Like, that motherfucker is not like what his lyrics sound like. If you I'm not
well, I can't imagine that's true of a lot of those guys.
Yeah, well, DMX is actually a good actor. Like, he was in this movie called Belly, which is actually
I know it, but I never saw it.
It's an entertaining movie. If you're into some like it was modeled kind of after. Well, they drew inspiration in some parts of it from Scarface. It's kind of like Scarface.
Created.
It's kind of like if you were to take some of the more some certain iconic moments from Scarface and then combine it with a really high production quality early 2000s music video.
Yeah.
Kind of like because it's directed by Hype Williams.
Is he like a brother of Treat Williams? Or?
I don't know who Treat Williams is, but Hype Williams would probably do videos for like, you know, Puff Daddy and fucking like Biggie and shit. Like he was that kind of director.
It's like the self-righteous, all full of ourselves, fucking self-promotion type directing style.
Well, and like very high budget, you know, like lots of like fisheye lenses and shit like that, and
you got to hire a bunch of shorties and.
Yeah, and like have like a big long hallway of like a big long circular hallway of all neon coating the whole fucking like actual neon lights flashing all around the, you know, shit like that. And it's this like gangster movie, but it's a black gangster movie. And there's a part where they I don't remember like how this happens, but they go to Jamaica because they have to kill the head mobster and he lives in Jamaica, and they send in like fucking, you know, 50 people to get him, and he shoots them all, kind of like in the final scene of Scarface. And then for some reason there's this like weird Jamaican woman who like jumps off a balcony onto him and slits his throat, and she's the like silent killer kind of. It's very strange looking back on it.
When it's summarized like that, it makes me want to watch it. I mean, if I read like the IMDb like synopsis, I'd probably be like, meh. But hearing you do it and laugh to yourself, it makes me like have to see it now.
You know, it's entertaining. Belly is what it's called, and it's.
I've heard of it.
Yeah. And DMX is in it. He also, so I saw him in it, and I was like, wait, this guy's a good actor. That makes me rethink his whole deal. And then he was on some sort of...
all his bravado in his albums is an act, so why can't...
because he's not a particularly good rapper. He's mostly just good at, like, being like, y'all gonna give it to me! Gonna give it to me! You know, like, it's just being all crazy. And then, he was on some sort of MTV reality show where he... I don't remember what it was called, but Cameron Diaz was the host of it, and they would go travel overseas, and they would go fucking places overseas with a rotating cast of celebrities that would have a different celebrity on something, and they'd learn about the culture a little bit or some shit. And Cameron Diaz was the host, and they took DMX over to Asia or some shit, and he was not like you would expect. He started like out of all the people there, he was the person who had kind of a breakdown and was like, "Oh my god, I don't know if I can do this. I don't know. I'm getting really uncomfortable. Blah blah blah." And he was like kind of freaking out, and it was largely because he missed his wife really bad, and he was like on the cell phone with his wife all the time, or some shit. And I think he might have gone back early, or like maybe his wife came up and met up or something. And like, it was like, wait, this guy is not a gangster. Like, no, this is just not what it is. So that was a little bit of a tangent, but
I the end of it. I'm so sorry, my internet crapped out.
Oh, it's fine. We should move on for the audience's sake. So, signs of a child being a part of a hate group. If your child is involved in a hate group, these early warning signs may be a clue.
White skin. End of list.
Sudden lack of interest in school, adopting new groups of friends, and staying out late without any explanation. Violence or secretive behavior. overt hostility to parents and family, disobedience, rudeness, racist graffiti, drawings, and doodling. Okay, that's the first one that might actually be a sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, everything else is like, be paranoid. Just think that your kids probably are doing it, because like everything else kids just do. Playing loud
is what your pastor would tell you to look for as signs that your kid's into Satanism.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all the same stuff.
Yeah, like anything that you want to scare parents about, this is it's kind of like those. There's this list of I didn't do it in a psychology class, but apparently there's this sort of a gag that psychology professors often play on their students, and it's to let people know the flimsiness of psychological surveys, and it asks a bunch of questions where they're yes or no questions, and the questions are all things to the effect of: do you often feel alone in a crowded room? Sometimes when a friend of yours is talking, do you find your mind wandering and wishing you could say something, but you don't want to interrupt them? Do you blah, blah, things like that. And it's all these questions. And then at the end, it's like, if you checked yes on 10 or more of these questions, you might have a particular psychological disorder. And literally everybody in the entire class checks yes on 10 or more of them, and they're all like, oh my god, I have it. It's like, what is it? You're gullible. Like, you don't have a psychological disorder. Everybody answers yes to these certain questions, and this is the same type of thing. Like, every parent will notice this stuff at some point with their kids. They will always play some music that sounds loud, heavy, and maybe has some sort of violent lyrics. I mean, maybe not the violent lyrics part, but stereotyping and scapegoating of certain groups, name-calling, racial and religious slurs in conversation at all times. Okay, I'm not sure at all times, but at some point as a parent, you are going to notice that your child is stereotyping groups. That just happens.
I love the at all times.
Yeah, that's
and just
weird.
Like, Mom, this meatloaf is really good. Thanks for dinner. It reminds me of niggers, and I hate them. What?
Yeah, that's where it gets a little.
At all times.
Yeah, it's like it's racial Tourette's. You just can't help it.
So making
Like
racist or bigoted.
In the morning, and the kid's fast asleep. He's like, damn, packing. In his sleep, even it just it's.
Ryan,
you're white terrors.
Ryan, you're cutting out a little bit, just so I know.
Truth is, it's getting late where I'm at. I should probably be bowing out here.
Okay. Let's just speed through this a little bit. So stereotyping and scapegoating certain groups, name-calling and racial and religious slurs in conversation at all time, making racist or bigoted comments about minorities, immigrants, or foreigners, a marked repugnance to consider certain ethnic or religious groups as fully Canadian or even human, wearing or displaying Nazi propaganda and symbols such as swastika or the Iron Cross, and or military clothing and paraphernalia. Gee, really? That's a sign? That's so odd. Changing their appearance.
Well, what's funny about it is some things on the list are like, hello, Captain Obvious. Your kid's wearing an actual SS armband.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
hello.
Obvious.
And then other things are just, changing their appearance. It's so vague, eh?
Yeah, it's so vague that you could include just like teenage angst, and boom, your kid's a neo-Nazi. Changes their appearance. Like you're like fucking Tim Allen's son Mark goes through his goth phase, and all of a sudden you're fucking worshiping Hitler.
Yeah, it's silly. In any event, Prince, I got to go here, but thanks for having me.
Okay, great. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Okay, cheers. Talk to you again soon.
It was nice to meet you.
Bye.